Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're hitting the open road with the 1969 counterculture classic, Easy Rider. This groundbreaking film captured the spirit of a generation with its rebellious energy, unforgettable soundtrack, and striking imagery of freedom and disillusionment in America. But while the movie itself has become a cultural landmark, the behind-the-scenes stories are just as wild as the ride on screen. So rev up your engines and get ready for 20 things you never knew about Easy Rider. Fonda conceived the idea while drinking beer and smoking marijuana in a motel room in Toronto. He immediately phoned Hopper in the middle of the night, suggesting that they both write and star in the film, with Hopper directing and himself producing. Dennis Hopper said in 2001 that co-writer Terry Southern had never written a single word of Easy Rider, claiming that the only contribution he had made was the film's title. Hopper explained that Southern had broken his hip and had been unable to write, so he had simply used Southern's office and dictated the entire script himself in just 10 days. Southern, however, presented a very different version of events. He explained that Peter Fonda had been intended as an actor-producer, Hopper as the actor-director, and he himself as the writer. After a couple of screenings on the West Coast, Southern received a call from Fonda, who said that both he and Hopper had enjoyed the film so much that they wanted to be credited as co-writers. Southern pointed out that the Writers Guild of America would never have allowed this, since one of them was already the producer and the other the director, unless he personally insisted on it. Choosing to ignore the Guild's rules, Southern allowed them to share the screenplay credit. Fonda later offered a more generous perspective on Southern's involvement. He said that Southern had provided them with a dark humour and a literary flair that neither he nor Hopper possessed. Having Southern on board as a writer, he suggested, gave the project a sense of depth and credibility, with audiences intrigued by the idea that Terry Southern had co-written the film. In the end, all three men received Oscar nominations for the screenplay. One of the most shocking aspects of Easy Rider is its ending, in which both of the lead characters meet a violent death. Terry Southern explained that the original idea revolved around the two young men who were disillusioned with the system, seeking to make one big score before leaving it all behind. The plan was for them to use the money to buy a boat in Key West and sail into the sunset, which was intended to serve as the film's final poetic image. However, towards the end, the story evolved into something far more profound. Rip Torn was originally cast as George Hanson. According to Torn, Dennis Hopper had pulled a knife on him during a pre-production meeting, while Hopper later claimed on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in 1994 that it was Torn who had drawn the knife. Torn successfully sued Hopper for defamation, receiving nearly $500,000. Bert Schneider, one of the film's executive producers, then suggested that Hopper cast Jack Nicholson as Hanson, provided Nicholson was willing to work for scale, which amounted to $392 per week. Reflecting on the decision, years later, at the AFI Life Achievement Award, a tribute to Jack Nicholson banquet, Fonda remarked that it had been the best $392 he had ever spent. Nicholson was asked whether he had known Easy Rider would be a success, and he admitted that he had. He explained that while he and Bob Rafelson had been working on the screenplay for Head, Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda had brought them a 12-page treatment for Easy Rider. Nicholson said he immediately sensed its potential, recalling that his experience with Roger Corman had taught him how profitable motorcycle films could be. His previous biker film had earned between $6 and $8 million on a budget of less than $500,000, and he believed the time was ripe for the genre to evolve, shifting away from exploitation towards something with greater literary substance. None of the stars were strangers to a biker film. Before Easy Rider, Hopper had appeared in the biker film The Glory Stompers, Fonda had starred in Corman's The Wild Angels, and Nicholson himself had acted in Hell's Angels on Wheels. Instead of hiring a composer to create an original score, Dennis Hopper chose to use pre-recorded tracks from artists such as Bob Dylan, the band, Steppenwolf, and Jimi Hendrix for the soundtrack. He later explained that up to that point, no one had really used existing music in films other than when it was played on a radio or sung within a scene. Hopper said he wanted Easy Rider to act as a kind of time capsule for the era, so while editing the film, he would listen to the radio, where he discovered songs like Born to Be Wild and The Pusher. To secure the rights, the filmmakers had to screen the film for the various musicians involved, with each band being paid $1,000. Bert Schneider and Bob Rafelson, who had created the Monkees, used the profits from that success to help finance Easy Rider. They initially gave Dennis Hopper $20,000 to shoot some preliminary footage in New Orleans, with the promise of further funding if they were impressed. Hopper used 16mm cameras for those early sequences, which gave the material a distinctive psychedelic look. He later recalled that Peter Fonda and Bill Haywood had constantly been recording him during this period, capturing moments where he declared with manic energy that they would win at Cannes, that their youth and strength would carry them all the way, and that no one should shoot anything without his approval. Schneider, however, paid little attention to the footage itself. He simply remarked that Hopper sounded enthusiastic and had claimed that they were going to win at Cannes, which he thought sounded like an excellent idea. In the end, Easy Rider did indeed triumph at the 1969 Cannes Film Festival, winning the Best First Work Award and earning a nomination for the Palme d'Or. The marijuana smoked by the characters on screen was genuine high-quality material that produced a rapid effect. The LSD, however, was not real, and the undescribed white powder that Fonda sniffed was simply powdered sugar. Peter Fonda's daughter, Bridget Fonda, had an uncredited cameo in the film as a child in the hippie commune, marking her film debut at the young age of 5. Near the end of Easy Rider, Wyatt and Billy sit around a campfire, with Wyatt excitedly reflecting on their newfound wealth. That scene had not been filmed during principal photography. 2 weeks after wrapping, they realized the moment was missing. They therefore reconvened in the Santa Monica Mountains, improvising the setting to represent Florida. Fonda and Hopper argued over the line, "We blew it," with Hopper wanting a much longer dialogue. Another scene shot later was Fonda's pivotal sequence in the hot springs. He was sidelined with pneumonia, forcing a 3-week delay before he could shoot it. That's why you don't see him in any shots with the other 3 actors. It seems everyone who was involved in this movie has a different version of events to everyone else, and after all the animosity, some things have been said purely out of spite. And so there has been considerable debate over who designed and built the choppers featured in the film. Cliff Vors claimed credit for the work, but Peter Fonda maintained that he both created the sketches and built the bikes. Vors had worked for the film for roughly a month before being dismissed, which is why his name does not appear in the credits. Another conflicting account is that the bikes were designed and built by a bike builder named Ben Hardy. Peter Fonda had met Hardy when he built the bike Fonda rode in The Wild Angels. Dennis Hopper confirmed in the documentary History of the Chopper that it was indeed Hardy who built the film's bikes. Others say they all worked together on creating them, but until time travel is invented, we will never know for sure. 2 bikes were customized with the Captain America stars and stripes for the production to prevent filming delays. But following production, one of these motorcycles, along with Hopper's, was stolen from the stuntman Tex Hall's home. Dan Haggerty, who had a small part in the film and helped maintain the bikes during production, got the burned one and restored it. This motorcycle is understood to be the sole remaining Captain America from Easy Rider. It sold at auction in 2014 for over $1.3 million. However, it recently went back up for sale. Some out there, including the late actor Michael Madsen, have questioned its authenticity. Henry Fonda attended a screening of his son Peter's film, where Dennis Hopper had to be removed so the cut could be reduced to under 4 hours. After viewing it, Henry told Peter he feared the film was too inaccessible and that audiences might struggle to follow or appreciate it. Even after its success, he still saw Peter as a loose cannon, until finally working with him for a single day softened that view. For the cemetery scene in which Peter Fonda is tripping on acid, director Dennis Hopper instructed him to speak to the statue as though addressing his mother, who had died by suicide when he was just 10 years old. Fonda was reluctant, having never confronted his feelings about her, but Hopper insisted. This is why he addresses the statue as mother, and expresses both love and hatred, reflecting his conflicted emotions. Stephen Stills wrote the song Find the Cost of Freedom at Dennis Hopper's request for the film's final scene, in which the camera pans up into the sky. Hopper ultimately chose not to use the track, and it was later released as the B-side to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young's single, Ohio. The band frequently used the song to close their concerts. The film was a huge success, topping the US box office for 3 weeks and becoming the 4th highest grossing film of 1969, with a worldwide total of $60 million, over $40 million of which came from domestic earnings. With a budget of under $400,000, it proved to be a highly profitable venture. After Terry Southern left the project, Fonda redirected part of his fee to the production company and associate producer Bill Haywood, Hopper's brother-in-law. Hopper felt cheated, but Fonda later said that Hopper's bitterness and megalomania prevented him from seeing he'd been treated fairly and with respect. Even though they had fallen out, they did come together for that Jack Nicholson Life Achievement Award in 1994. Sadly, Hopper never let go of the grudges developed on this film, carrying them with him until his death in 2010. Knowing Hopper was dying, Fonda and producer Bert Schneider had made repeated attempts to visit him, but Hopper had refused to see them. At Hopper's funeral, Fonda was denied entry to the chapel. He later admitted that, despite his wish to pay respects to Hopper and his family, he had not been allowed to take part in the service. Phil Pitzer, an Ohio lawyer and producer, discovered that the sequel rights to Easy Rider were available. In 2007, he sued Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider to prevent them from asserting ownership of the rights. Pitzer won the case and proceeded with the sequel, initially titled Easy Rider Scarlet Cross. He later renamed it Easy Rider The Ride Back. Unlike the original, the sequel went straight to DVD and failed to make any significant impact on American culture. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Easy Rider. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.